Hi, my name is Christina Serratis, and in this video, we're going to look at playlists. So, my goal is to talk about what is a playlist, show you how to actually put one together, look at some tools for building a playlist. We'll talk about what students think about them, and we'll wrap up with some resources for you to explore. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a computer teacher and technology facilitator at the Coakley Middle School in Norwood, Massachusetts, and I'm also a FUSE Fellow from Cohort 1 in Massachusetts. Let's get started. So, what is a playlist? In its simplest form, it's nothing more than just a list of assignments, activities that students need to complete. So let's get back to the beginning. As teachers, we are used to planning. We may, on a Sunday night, for example, plan out for the entire week. We know what our objectives are. We think about how we're going to introduce that particular objective. We look at the different assignments or activities that we want our students to work on. We look at reinforcing activities, and then we incorporate some kind of assessment, probably at the end, but hopefully throughout, and then we get to mastery. So we're planning out our week. So we know this is what we're going to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for example. And we could be planning for a week or 2 weeks or just a couple of days. But the idea is when we're introducing something, we know the entire roadmap. We know what the expectations are, what we want students to do from start to finish. But students don't know that. Generally speaking, they only know what you're doing that day. And if they miss a day, they've missed it. And we do the best that we can to try to get them to pick up on what they missed, but they don't know the entire plan. But what a playlist does is it lays everything out for the student. Now, you can create a playlist for just one particular skill, one entire lesson, one standard, or one entire unit. So a playlist could be just for that one day, a couple of days, a few weeks, or even a month or an entire term. It's really depends on what you're choosing to do. And the playlist will contain all of the resources needed for the students to complete. And usually there's some kind of order to it. And it's important that the playlist consists of multiple media resources, such as links to websites and videos and podcasts and articles and images and even some educational games. And most important, that there are some assessments built in. So a playlist could look something like this. It's just basically a Google Doc, which lays out what students need to do. There should be some dates of when things have to get done and probably some check-ins, which you'll notice the stop sign is an opportunity to check in with the teacher to make sure that the students are on task. So the benefit of using a playlist is that the students, they know everything that they need, all the expectations, everything they need to get done. So they pace themselves throughout the playlist. Some kids work faster, some kids work slower. So you'll find that some kids will just fly through the different activities and some kids will take more time, but they're pacing through the playlist and working at their own pace. They're also choosing the time to work on it. Some kids will choose to work on it at home or during study hall, and hopefully they're all working on it during your class. Because you will build in some informal assessments and formal assessments, the kids are able to track their own work and also get instant feedback. And that instant feedback is important for them, for their own self-pacing, but it's also important for you because it allows you to differentiate instruction. And that's one of the beauties of a playlist is that you can create modifications to multiple activities so that instruction is differentiated. And also by having kids work on a playlist, it frees you up to either work one-on-one with the student or to work in small groups. So you can use a playlist for an entire class. So basically, every day the kids come in and they just go through the playlist and they know where they left off and they just pick up where they left off. Or you can use it more in a blended model with a station rotation where you have one group doing the playlist, another group could be doing a collaborative or a hands-on activity, and then you can have a third group where they'll be working with you. So you'll do some kind of a small group instruction. Or you can just use a playlist for one student or just a few students because you're differentiating for them. Playlists can be used every day. They can be used a few times a week or just once a week. But the idea is you'll have the playlist and the students will know all the expectations for that particular playlist. They'll have all the resources there and they can work on it during class time if that's if you allot for that, or they can work on it at home as part of homework, but it's all there. So how to actually put one together. So you want to get started by thinking about all the objective of the lesson and all of the different activities that you're going to do. So, how are you going to introduce the lesson? Maybe you want them watching some kind of video. I am a huge fan of Screencastify. The students know that they always expect to see a video that I create. They watch the video, and because I can modify it to my students and really focus on what I want them to hear. You can also start with a podcast or maybe a Google form where you're doing some kind of a pre-assessment or some kind of article that you want them to read. Then you want to think about the different activities they're going to work on. Maybe they're just worksheets or papers, pages from their textbook or anything else that you want them doing, some kind of online assignments that you want them working on, Google Docs, whatever it is that they would normally do if they weren't working on the playlist. So all that is built into the playlist along with any resources and links that they need. And you want to make sure that you include some kind of reinforcement activities. There are a lot of websites out there that have awesome educational games, and some of them have some tracking capabilities for you. And then there'll be some kind of assessment. Technically, you want to make sure you put the assessment throughout just to make sure that, especially if a playlist is a week long, you don't want to get to the end of the week and find out that someone didn't was lost somewhere. So you want to get some kind of check-ins put in, and then you can either have like a final assessment or some kind of a project. But what's the important thing about having a playlist is that you get to differentiate, and you differentiate based on data. And that's why it's so important that you put these little informal assessments built in from like a Google form, just a quick check-in, or just from your own observation of the different activities that the students are working on, or the students' own observation where they're checking their own work against an answer key that you may load into Google Classroom. So just a quick reminder on how to build a playlist. You want to begin with a unit, an objective, a lesson, and you break it down to the different activities that you want them to complete. Remember, you know the roadmap. You're going to give your students the roadmap. Gather all of your resources and put the resources in some kind of an order. And then what you want to do is look at some of the activities and differentiate it into 3 different levels. And that's how you start personalizing for your students. And remember to include multiple forms of media in your playlist. And the other thing that you can do, which is important for choice, is add things that students must complete and things that students may do. And that gives them a little bit of power that they don't have to do everything, or that, there's some things that they don't have to do, but they feel great because they did it. You want to put in some formal and informal assessments. There are some wonderful websites out there to help you. Google Forms, Formative Kahoots, quizzes, Socrative, just to name a few. And then you want to go ahead and find a product to create your playlist. But most importantly, start small. Just start with one little lesson, and then you can build from there. So, tools to build your playlists. There are lots of resources out there. So, you can start simple with just a Word document or a Google Doc. Go back to the old fashioned syllabus, which is just the list, or you can go ahead and create tables. So, here's an example of a table. What I like about this table is it's got due dates, or you might want to add some pictures and colors to the tables. But what's the important part is that all the resources are contained within this document, making it like a hyperdoc. And speaking of hyperdocs, make sure you check out their website because there are lots of cool templates that you can use. And here's an example of just 2 of the templates. What's nice about this is that students know how to proceed through the hyperdoc by following the numerical tiles. Now, if you're not a Google Docs fan, you can just go ahead and use a simple spreadsheet, a Google Sheets, or an Excel file. Again, make sure all the links and due dates are included. Or you can go ahead and create a Google Slides. What's nice about this one is one of the first slides may have like 3 different modules built in where you have like a hyperlink. So you click on one hyperlink button and that'll take you to a bunch of slides, and another one will take you to some others, and a third button will take you to other slides. So building differentiation within your Google slide. Or you can use Google Classroom, which is actually what I use. It's not as pretty, but what you can do is within Google Classroom, I list out all of the assignments that need to get done, and each of the assignments within each has all of the resources contained. You'll have the worksheets and the any documents that they need to fill out, plus videos. I love using Screencastify to record videos. Now, to help students, I also do put a post in the stream portion of Google Classroom with the list of everything that needs to get done, as well as due dates. And then I am able to differentiate by sending out different playlists or modified playlists to different students in the classroom. So this works for me. Not as pretty, but it's a useful tool. Now, if you really are a techie person, you might want to consider doing a Google site, or you can take a Google site and build it within a playlist as well. So this particular Google site was built by a teacher in Dedham. And what I like about this one, not only is it, pretty cool and techie looking, is that he built some opportunity for online collaboration with the students. So that's pretty nice. If you're looking for online tools, look at Blended Spaces. That's one of the most well-known one. It is not pretty, but here is a blended space that I created that I will share with you later on. But there are a lot of other online tools that you can use. Some examples include Edpuzzle, Formative, Nearpod, Symbaloo, and I bet as you are listening to this, you are thinking of other things that you can possibly use as well. So, what do students think about playlists? Well, here are some positives that I heard. Some kids like working at their own pace. They say it helps them to plan their life, it helps them to manage their time better. So, what they're referring to, especially after school, like if on Monday, for example, they know that here are the expectations before the end of the week or before next week, they can plan their homework nights based on after school activities and sports that they may do. They seem to notice that teachers are more readily available. So when they're confused, they just put their hand up and a teacher is there to help them. And that's because playlists do free up your time, especially if the entire class is working on a playlist. It frees up your time to walk around and work one-on-one with students that need the additional help. Kids like being accountable for their own work. They also like that some playlists include optional. There's some power in choosing whether they're going to do something or not. So they like that. The kids who like to work, who tend to work quickly, like knowing what's next. They feel like they're not wasting their time. They don't have to wait for the teacher. They just finish one task and they know exactly what to do next. Some kids like the videos. They prefer that instead of having the teacher in front of the room. Basically, with the video, you can condense instruction to a couple of minutes versus taking 10, 15, 20 minutes explaining the same concept in front of a class. Kids can pause videos, rewind videos, watch it anytime that they want. So there's a lot of benefits for using the videos. And one student did notice that kids work faster and some kids work slower, and that playlists give them the opportunity to work at their own pace. So, some things for you to keep in mind that also came up is that not everybody likes working on a computer. Some kids still prefer to have paper. Some kids note that they learn better by writing and highlighting. So, in that case, I recommend that you do have some paper copies available of any of the assignments that students need to do. Not a whole class set, but just some, because some kids are going to want that. Some kids say that they learn better by taking notes when teachers are explaining things. Well, if you're videotaping explanations, then you can encourage your students to take notes on the videos that they're listening to. Some kids felt overwhelmed having everything at once, and these are the students that you will need to check in more often. But I just caution you that some of these students are noticing that the teachers are always with them and they don't want that kind of attention drawn onto themselves. So make sure that you're using the time to also meander throughout and checking in with many students at the same time. One student noticed, or many students noticed, that they missed working in groups. That collaborative portion is very important for students' development. So one of the ways that Playlist is actually most successful is more in a blended learning model where you incorporate it as part of a station rotation, where you have one group of students focusing just on the playlist, another group doing some kind of collaborative assignment or hands-on assignment, and a third group possibly working with you in a small group setting, or doing something else. So playlists are not really meant to be used every day, every moment of the day. Think of incorporating it as a tool that does the roadmap of the entire lesson, but some of it could be done at off classroom times, like at home, and it could be done in some kind of a rotation model. So keep that in mind. Some students miss having you telling stories in the front of the room, so that's why not having playlists every second of the day is helpful. And one important thing is, if you have too many links, it can be difficult for students to go back to things that they're trying to find. So you may want to have some place as a repository of all of your resources. For example, if you're using a Google Classroom, you can have a section that has all of the resources right there, so kids don't have to figure out exactly which link gets to the resource that they're trying to backtrack to. So speaking of resources, I put together this blended spaces. This is the bit.ly, and here's the QR code. And these are the resources that I looked at when I was trying to find some more information about playlists. I want to direct your attention to tile number 7. There you'll find a bunch of hyperdocs that were created by two sisters in Rhode Island, and there's some awesome resources there that I'm hoping you'll be able to modify to use in your own classroom. So that's it. I hope you found this video helpful and that you are able to incorporate playlists into your teaching. Have a wonderful school year.